I used to think family would step in before your life completely fell apart. I believed that if things ever got bad enough, someone would finally notice the damage and say enough is enough. I was wrong. The day my younger sister lost custody of her daughter, I realized people will watch you drown as long as it keeps them from feeling uncomfortable themselves. And the worst part was that she still blamed me for every terrible choice she ever made. My name is Claire, and when all of this started, I was 23 years old, exhausted, broke, and trying to claw my way through community college while working 2 jobs. My younger sister Madison was 17 and convinced she knew everything about life. She had this loud confidence that made adults either adore her or avoid her completely. She thought rules existed for weaker people and consequences only happened to someone else. Our parents spent years trying to control her, but Madison had learned early that if she screamed loud enough or cried hard enough, most people would eventually back down. She started dating a guy named Derek during her junior year of high school. He was 21, covered in tattoos, unemployed half the time, and somehow always had money for weed and concerts. Even before I met him, people around town already knew his reputation. Girls rotated through his apartment constantly, and every relationship ended with somebody crying. I tried warning Madison from the beginning. I told her he was using her. I told her she was too young to throw her future away over some guy who treated women like disposable entertainment. She accused me of being jealous because nobody exciting ever wanted me. That became her favorite insult whenever I disagreed with her. According to Madison, my life was pathetic because I worked all the time, studied constantly, and never partied. She used to laugh at my schedule and say I was wasting my 20s acting like somebody middle-aged. Still, I kept trying. I talked to her about birth control. I explained how hard life becomes when you have a baby before you are financially stable. I even begged her to slow down and think about what kind of future she actually wanted. Every conversation ended the same way. Madison yelling that I was not her mother and slamming a door hard enough to shake the walls. Then one night during dinner, she announced she was pregnant like she expected applause. I still remember the silence afterward. My father stared at her like he did not recognize his own daughter. My mother burst into tears immediately. Madison sat there with one hand on her stomach and this stubborn expression on her face like she had already decided the entire world was against her. When my dad asked what Derek planned to do, Madison snapped that he loved her and they would figure things out together. 3 days later, my parents kicked her out. I did not agree with how they handled it, but I also understood their frustration. Madison had ignored every warning anyone ever gave her. She packed 2 garbage bags full of clothes and stormed out of the house pretending she did not care. Derek picked her up in his rusted truck, and she flipped us off through the passenger window before they drove away. For a while, I hoped reality might finally teach her what nobody else could. Instead, things got worse. She moved into Derek's family cramped house on the edge of town. His mother hated her almost immediately, and Derek kept disappearing for days at a time. Every now and then Madison would call me crying because he had cheated again, or because his parents complained about feeding another mouth. I offered to help her find programs for teen mothers. I even suggested adoption agencies because I knew she was overwhelmed and terrified beneath all that anger. She told me my fake sympathy made her sick. Then 6 months after the baby was born, Derek vanished completely. He left Madison for another girl and moved to counties away. His parents gave Madison 1 week to leave their house. Suddenly the same sister who spent months insulting me showed up outside my apartment carrying a diaper bag and a screaming newborn named Lily. She did not ask if she could stay. She informed me she would be staying because I owed her. I thought she was joking at first. I actually laughed. Then Madison looked me dead in the face and told me that if I had been a better sister, she never would have ended up pregnant in the first place. According to her, I should have guided her more. I should have protected her from bad decisions. She said I failed her, and now it was my responsibility to help fix the mess. I should have closed the door right then. Instead, I looked at the baby crying in her arms and stepped aside. At first, I told myself it was temporary, a few days, maybe a couple weeks. Long enough for Madison to find work and get stable. But almost immediately, she started acting like my apartment belonged to her. She slept until noon while I worked double shifts. She left dirty bottles everywhere and expected me to clean them because I was naturally more responsible. Whenever Lily cried during the night, Madison suddenly became impossible to wake up. Then she started going out again. The first time, She claimed she just needed dinner with friends because she was stressed. She disappeared for 10 hours and ignored every phone call while I sat home pacing my apartment with a crying infant. After that, it became normal. Entire weekends vanished where Madison would throw on makeup, squeeze into tight clothes, and walk out the door saying she deserved to enjoy her youth too. Every time I complained, she twisted it back on me. She said I should have taught her responsibility earlier. She said this was my chance to make up for failing her growing up. She said I had no idea how hard motherhood was because nobody would ever want to have kids with someone as boring as me. The manipulation was so constant that after a while, I almost stopped noticing how insane it sounded. Meanwhile, my life collapsed piece by piece. I started missing classes because Madison would not come home and I had nobody to watch Lily. My grades tanked. One of my managers finally fired me after I called out too many times due to childcare emergencies that technically were not even mine. My rent payments became late because formula and diapers cost more than I ever imagined. Derek sent child support occasionally, but Madison spent most of it on herself, new clothes, hair appointments, alcohol. Then she would shrug and tell me I made more money anyway. One afternoon I came home from class and found expensive makeup spread across my kitchen table, while Lily sat in a soaked diaper crying from her playpen. Madison was taking selfies for social media. When I snapped and asked why she had money for cosmetics but not baby supplies, she rolled her eyes and said she needed to feel pretty sometimes because motherhood had ruined her body. Then came the moment that truly terrified me. I got a letter in the mail about government assistance benefits connected to Lily. At first I assumed it was a mistake. But when I looked closer, I realized Madison had listed me as Lily primary caregiver on official documents. She used my address, my income, and parts of my personal information without permission. She had been collecting benefits for months while I paid for almost everything myself. When I confronted her, she acted confused about why I was upset. She said I basically raised Lily already, so the paperwork just reflected reality. Then she laughed and told me this arrangement was probably the closest I would ever come to having a child of my own. Something inside me changed that night. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. For nearly 2 years, I had allowed Madison to rewrite reality until I questioned my own memory. She convinced me her choices were somehow my fault. She treated my sacrifice like an obligation instead of kindness. And worst of all, Lily had started calling me mama because I was the one feeding her, bathing her, comforting her, and putting her to sleep every night while Madison stumbled home smelling like smoke and cheap liquor. That was when I started documenting everything. Every text message where Madison admitted she would not be home. Every receipt for diapers, medicine, clothes, formula, and groceries. I bought notebooks and recorded dates and times whenever she disappeared. I took screenshots of social media posts showing her partying while I sat home caring for Lily. For 6 straight months, I quietly built evidence. Then Madison made the mistake that destroyed everything. She created an online fundraiser claiming she was a struggling single mother abandoned by her family. According to her posts, she worked 3 jobs while raising Lily completely alone. She uploaded tearful videos talking about sacrifice and survival. Strangers flooded the comments with encouragement. People sent her money because they believed her lies. Within weeks, she raised nearly $2,000. I stared at those posts one night while Lily slept beside me on the couch. My apartment was dark except for the glow of my phone screen. Madison was out somewhere again, probably drinking away money meant for her child. And suddenly I realized nothing would ever change unless I forced it to. So I filed for emergency custody. When Madison got served the papers, she laughed so hard she nearly cried. She said no judge would ever choose an aunt over a biological mother. She did not hire a lawyer because she genuinely believed the entire hearing would be a waste of time. I hired my cousin Vanessa instead. Vanessa specialized in family law, and after hearing everything, she agreed to represent me. The night before court, we sat at her kitchen table organizing evidence into binders. Every receipt, every screenshot, every written log. By the time we finished, the stack looked massive. Madison still did not take it seriously. The morning of the hearing, she arrived late wearing clothes that looked more appropriate for a nightclub than a courtroom. Her makeup from the night before was smeared beneath her eyes, and I could smell alcohol the second she walked past me. Meanwhile, I sat there in a plain sweater clutching folders full of evidence with my stomach tied into knots. The hearing started simply enough. The judge asked Madison basic questions about Lily routine. What pediatrician she saw, what formula she drank, what size diaper she wore. Madison stumbled through almost every answer. She guessed wrong about Lily's favorite stuffed animal. She could not remember the last doctor appointment. At one point she actually looked toward me like she expected help. Then Vanessa began presenting evidence. She moved carefully and calmly, placing receipts across the table one by one. Formula purchases, late-night pharmacy runs, clothing in larger sizes as Lily grew. The dates lined up perfectly with text messages where Madison admitted she would not be home. I watched the judge's expression slowly harden. Vanessa showed screenshots of Madison's social media accounts. There were photos of bars, concerts, parties, beach trips, and drunken girls' nights posted on weekends. Madison claimed she was working. Then Vanessa handed over my written logs documenting every overnight absence. Weeks and weeks where I was effectively the only parent. The courtroom became painfully quiet as the judge flipped through pages. Madison tried interrupting several times, insisting I wanted her daughter because I was jealous and lonely. But every emotional outburst only made her look worse. Vanessa never raised her voice once. She just kept presenting evidence methodically until the truth became impossible to ignore. Then the judge asked about the government benefits. I watched panic flicker across Madison's face for the first time. She tried claiming she misunderstood the paperwork. She said it made sense to list me because I helped so much. But Vanessa immediately produced bank records showing Madison spent the assistance money on restaurants, bars, and retail shopping while I struggled with overdraft fees buying baby supplies. The judge's expression turned ice cold. Next came the crowdfunding scam. Vanessa handed over printed screenshots of Madison fundraiser posts. The judge actually read portions aloud in court. Hearing those lies spoken in a formal courtroom made my skin crawl. Madison claimed she worked 3 jobs and received no support while desperately trying to feed her child. The judge asked her to name those jobs. Madison froze. She mumbled something about occasional babysitting and online work but could not provide details. The silence afterward felt suffocating. Then the guardian appointed for Lily stood to speak. Her name was Dr. Evelyn Hart, and she had visited my apartment multiple times during the investigation. She explained that Lily displayed all the signs of secure attachment toward me. She said Lily consistently called me Mama and sought comfort from me instead of Madison. The hardest moment came when Dr. Hart described asking Lily where her mommy was. Lily had pointed directly at me. I saw something break in Madison's face when she heard that. For a second, beneath all the anger and selfishness, she looked devastated. But even then, she still could not fully take responsibility. She kept blaming stress, bad circumstances, and everyone else around her. Finally, the judge made her ruling. Temporary custody of Lily was granted to me immediately. Madison collapsed into tears. Real sobbing this time, loud and desperate. But the judge did not soften. She explained this decision was about stability and safety, not biology. Madison would receive supervised visitation only until she demonstrated consistent improvement. Then came the part nobody expected. The judge referred the fraud investigation to prosecutors. You could physically see terror hit Madison. She started begging at that point, saying she never meant for things to go this far, saying she was overwhelmed and scared. But the judge simply informed her that fraud involving government benefits and online fundraising could not be ignored. When the hearing ended, Madison exploded. She rushed toward me screaming that I ruined her life and stole her baby. Vanessa stepped between us immediately while a bailiff moved closer. People around the courtroom stopped to stare as Madison hurled insults at me loud enough for everyone to hear. But this time, something was different. For years her words controlled me. They made me feel guilty, weak, selfish. Standing there in that courtroom, I finally realized her anger came from losing control, not from being wronged. Eventually the bailiff forced her to leave. Afterward, I picked Lily up from the courthouse daycare room. The second she saw me, she reached out with both tiny arms and buried her face against my shoulder. I carried her to my car feeling numb. That night after dinner and bath time, she fell asleep holding onto my shirt like she was afraid I might disappear too. I sat beside her bed for a long time staring at the ceiling while the reality settled over me. I was 24 years old. I had temporary custody of a toddler, and somehow, despite all the fear and exhaustion, the apartment finally felt peaceful for the first time in years. 2 days later, the prosecutor office contacted me for an official statement regarding the fraud investigation. Hearing the words identity theft connected to my own sister made me physically sick. Even after everything, part of me still wanted to protect her. Then the text started. At first Madison apologized. She claimed she loved me and never intended harm. Within hours the messages changed tone completely. Suddenly I was evil, jealous, manipulative, bitter, and desperate for attention. She accused me of plotting to steal Lily from the beginning. I sent every message to Vanessa. She told me not to respond under any circumstances. A week later, something happened that hurt almost as much as the years with Madison. My Aunt Rebecca called me one evening while I cleaned up toys from the living room floor. She admitted the entire family knew Madison was taking advantage of me. They had all seen me missing work, struggling financially, and raising Lily alone while Madison partied constantly. Nobody intervened because they did not want drama. I stood there holding the phone while anger spread through my chest like fire. All those holidays where relatives smiled politely while watching me drown. All those moments where somebody could have spoken up and chose comfort instead. Rebecca apologized repeatedly and offered help with babysitting. I accepted because I needed support more than pride. Over the next few months, life slowly stabilized. I returned to school part-time. Vanessa helped me navigate custody paperwork while Dr. Hart continued evaluations. Lily adjusted surprisingly quickly once the chaos disappeared from our home. Bedtimes became calmer. She stopped waking up crying so often. Her daycare teachers even commented that she seemed happier and more secure. Madison visitation sessions rarely went well. Sometimes she missed them completely. The other times she arrived late and spent half the visit complaining about court instead of interacting with Lily. According to the supervisors, Lily often clung to me afterward and became anxious whenever Madison raised her voice. The saddest part was realizing how preventable all of this had been. Nobody expected Madison to be perfect. She was young, scared, unprepared, but instead of accepting help or accountability, she built her entire identity around blaming everyone else for her choices. Eventually, those choices caught up with her in a courtroom where excuses stopped working. The final custody hearing happened almost a year later. By then, the fraud investigation had ended with Madison accepting a plea agreement to avoid jail time. She was ordered to repay thousands in benefits and donations. She also had mandatory counseling and parenting classes. The judge awarded me permanent guardianship. Madison still retained limited visitation rights, but only under strict conditions. When the ruling was read, she did not scream this time. She just sat there staring at the floor looking hollow. After court ended, she approached me quietly in the hallway. For the first time in years, there was no arrogance in her voice. She asked if Lily was happy. I told her yes. Then Madison started crying again, softer this time, almost like she finally understood what she had thrown away. She said she never meant for things to become so bad. She admitted she kept blaming me because admitting the truth about herself felt unbearable. I did not know what to say. Some wounds heal, others just scar over. Today, Lily is 5 years old. She loves dinosaurs, macaroni and cheese, and dancing barefoot in the living room while cartoons play in the background. She still calls me mom. Sometimes people ask whether I regret stepping in, whether I resent losing my 20s to raise somebody else's child. The truth is complicated. There were nights I cried from exhaustion, days I felt trapped and terrified. Moments I hated Madison so much I could barely breathe. But every time Lily wraps her arms around my neck or falls asleep beside me during movie nights, I know I made the right choice. Because children do not choose the chaos adults create around them. Somebody has to choose them instead.